Whenever I have screaming wake me up dreams, they always start the same way. It's my fiance's hand reaching out for the handle, the door handle, and then he says, "Get down." November 15th, 2004. It was our first work day back after being in Fiji. We'd been on a scuba trip in Fiji. We'd only been back for 36 hours. And we were in that perfect post-amazing vacation. You know, while we were there, we committed finally to actually coming back and getting married in a Fijian tidal pool. It couldn't have been more perfect. And my biggest concern was that someone else had picked up my scuba bag.
So when I started working as an intern in the office of Congresswoman Gabby Giffords, they actually asked me to start a little early. Would you be available to come in on Saturday morning to help out with an event? And I, of course, said yes. So I, of course, showed up late. I'm known for showing up late to everything. And he asked me to work checking in people as they came in.
I was actually on a 24-hour call shift the day before. And then I had an appointment with my trainer. I want to say it was 11 or 12 or something. So I was sitting in my office saying to myself, if I go home, I won't go to my trainer. So I'm going to sit here and do work, go from here to the trainer, then home and sleep. Gunshot victims coming in 5. And you know, that's a little unusual. And then a couple minutes later, another page comes off and says, update, 13 victims coming. And that is very unusual.
As we pulled into the parking lot, this other truck came along beside us and just screeched up along beside us. And I remember being shocked and wondering why this accident had just happened. We started to get out because we just had a car accident. And then the shooting started. 3 bullets fired, and then the shooting stopped. My fiance was on top of me, protecting me. He sat up to drive away, and there were 2 more bullets fired. The first one of those went through his wrist and into his brain. And his words, he was talking, and his words just melted. They just went from language to gibberish to vocalization. And then he slumped over the steering wheel, and his foot was still on the gas. And we were speeding up, and the last bullet hit me in the back, and it hit like a lightning bolt. It was just this electric heat that went through my body, and I knew that I'd been shot.
Congress on Your Corner was this really cool concept that Gabby did, where instead of going and having people come to her office or having them come to a big congressional event, she would go to them. So I'm checking folks into the event on January 8th, and one of the things that happened is there was a young girl named Christina Taylor Green who came in, and one of the most vivid memories that I have is getting down to her level because she was a lot shorter than I was, but because Gabby had always talked about the importance of treating everybody with respect and treating them equally, regardless of whether they were 8 years old or 80. So about 10 minutes into the event is when the shooting actually started. I dropped what I was doing and started running towards the front of the line, crossed paths with Jared Loeffner, the shooter, while he was still firing into the crowd.
I heard about 15 to 20 gunshots.
The man accused of opening fire at a community greeting with Arizona Congresswoman Gabrielle Giffords is set to be arraigned in federal court Monday in Phoenix.
By the time that I got there, in less than 9 seconds, he had already fired 30 rounds, injuring 13 people and killing 6. So I finally get to where Gabby is, and I got on the floor behind her, did another quick check to see if there was only the 1 gunshot wound, and then started applying pressure to her head. Because what happens a lot in a mass casualty situation like what happened in Tucson is the EMTs are not allowed to come in, even if they're nearby, until the scene is secure. And because there's so much chaos and confusion during the beginning of a shooting, people don't know who are the gunmen, who are the assailants, who are the victims. So it was 9 agonizing minutes of waiting for the sheriff's department and the police department to clear the scene, to allow the fire department and the ambulances that were just a couple of feet away which were just staring at us for about 6 minutes, waiting for their permission to be able to come in and help.
This would qualify as a mass casualty. Mass casualty meaning when you have more victims than you have resources, then you have a mass casualty situation. So we started thinking about triaging. I started putting a doctor in every one of our trauma bays. I didn't know the congresswoman was involved until the first patient arrived. And that was Christina Taylor Greene, the young girl. When I was taking care of her, we actually had to do emergency surgery on her in the emergency room, but we weren't able to revive her. I was told that Congresswoman Giffords was the next patient due to arrive. What is their mental status? How alert are they? Are they in a coma from this gunshot wound? And one of the first things I did was to speak to her. And her eyes were open, and she actually was able to respond to my command and follow my commands, and that was a bit surprising. The next issue, pressing issue, is she needs to have a CT scan of her head. And then, of course, you remember at some point on the news media, they said that she passed away. And when I heard that, I was with her the entire time. I was with her when she was in the ER, in the CT scan, in the OR. But when I heard that the media was reporting that, I immediately went to her mother and said it's not true. And then there it was decided that the neurosurgeons would come in and operate that day. Exponentially decreases the farther you get from surgery, but she just had a major surgery, so there's certainly still a risk for infection.
And what about the swelling?
The car horn is going, and I'm confused, and I didn't want to open the doors because I didn't want them, whoever they were, to know we were alive. This man came running, told me that my fiance that he'd been shot, and he was trying to tend to him, and I managed to dial 911.
My phone won't work. What's your emergency? David, call on your phone. Hello, this is 911. I've been shot. Where are you? I am at Philip. Where? At 32nd and Cactus at Philip Rose. 32nd Avenue and Cactus at what? 32nd Street. Street? And Cactus at Philip Rose. And I'm dying. Please hurry. I'm dying. Okay, I'm getting the call in, ma'am. I'm dying. Where are you shot on your body? I don't know. I cannot move. I'm dying and I can't breathe anymore. Are you in a car? Are you on foot? I'm in a car. What? Got him in a car. Somebody help me, I'm dying.
I had my first surgeries without anesthesia, and I lost consciousness then. But I remember rousing to the sound of my son's voice calling, "Mom, Mom." He was trying so hard to be brave. Our children should never have to be that afraid or that brave.